Hello everybody, welcome to the Boxing Science Podcast. This is episode 10, where we're going to be doing an interview with super middleweight world title challenger John Ryder and his strength and conditioning coach Dan Lawrence. Now the reason for doing this podcast is not only to have a catch up with John and talk about lockdown and what he's been doing to adapt and his kind of future ambitions 2020, but it's to talk to him about his strength and conditioning and how that's had an impact on his boxing performance with his recent run of form that's seen him box Callum Smith, perform really well, and show that he is a world-class operator. At Boxing Science and on our podcast and various stuff on Instagram, it's always coming from the strength and conditioning coaches or the nutritionists or the physiologists on how impactful strength and conditioning can be. But what really matters is how the athlete perceives it, how he sees how it's improved his physical performance and how that translates into his boxing. Also, what confidence does he take from that, seeing the numbers and being able to give him that confidence and that ultimate belief that he's in the best shape possible on fight night. So we're going to ask John a series of questions about strength and conditioning, what's his favourite aspects of it, how it's kind of changes how he approaches to training. And then Dan's going to give us an insight to some of the more technical stuff. What are the actual methods that Dan employed with John to help get him fitter, faster, stronger, moving better, getting his recovery and nutrition right, so then he is in the optimal shape come fight night. Before we get on with the interview, I'd like to ask two quick favours. One, if you're not a subscriber to the podcast channel yet, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. The second favour, if you like the podcast, please leave us a review. The higher ratings that we get, the higher we go on the podcast chart, and our podcast becomes more accessible. We get more views, we get more listens, and then we're now able to do more content. We're able to bring in John and Dan and Duncan French from the UFC Performance Institute and have more opportunities to get this kind of learning experience for us all. So if you're not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. If you like the content, please leave a rating. Okay, so let's get on with the interview. Welcome to the Boxing Science Podcast. I'd like to give a warm welcome to our guests today, John Ryder and his strength and conditioning coach, Dan Lawrence. We'll bring it to you first, John. How are things? How's lockdown been? As I'm sure that it's been quite frustrating. Got big plans for 2020, but I'm sure that you've been training hard and getting ready back to being back in action very soon.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for that intro. Normally I'm introduced as it's Dan Lawrence with one of the clients he works with. So it's nice to be mentioned first. Yeah, I mean, going off the momentum we had last year, we were looking to get a great 2020. As Dan would say, all the big rocks were in place for another great year. And yeah, we didn't plan for this. So yeah, I mean, I've made do. I've got to give a shout out to Perium Fitness. They've sorted me right out so I can keep up with my strength and conditioning work at home. And yeah, just running miles, taking inches off my legs with the run I've been doing, and just back in the gym now boxing. So I'm pleased.
Is it like just getting on the bike again? Or are you feeling a little bit rusty, or are you feeling ready to go again?
I'm surprisingly a lot sharper than I thought I would be. So
yeah.
I think the good thing that has come from this period of time away from the gym is all the little niggles have got to heal up, and you've kind of been forced to recover a bit with your hands. I had a little niggle in my hand, so that's healed up nicely. So yeah, I mean, where we've lost a bit of momentum in the weights room and in the gym, we're healed up nicely, ready to go when we can finally get started.
Yeah, it's good that you've actually said that, because a lot of boxers see it as a negative that they're being taken away from the gym, but actually it could be a positive, because as a professional boxer, you're always wanting to be out again and be back in competition, but you've actually recognised this lockdown as a bit of a positive to give your body a rest, because so many athletes have these niggles in the shoulders, in the elbows, maybe in the knees, but they just think, oh, just get over it, keep pushing on, work around it. But in fact, actually taking yourself away from that, it's actually give it a chance to heal. Before we go any further, I welcome Dan to the podcast. Dan, how are you? And you've had 10 weeks of webinars and remote coaching. Are you back in the gym? Are you enjoying doing some face-to-face coaching?
Not quite yet. We're kind of transitioning at the moment, and I think as of next week, I might be in with some of the boxers. Just got to obviously adhere to government guidelines and to see what happens there. At first, I wasn't sure about this whole digital era of coaching. Obviously, our hand was forced, and it was our only means of staying engaged with our athletes and clients. But I kind of warmed to it over time and got used to it. I think with the odd internet issue, it does become incredibly frustrating. I coached a lady this morning, and it was an absolute nightmare. The internet was terrible her end, and that was a bit of a pain. But we're doing what we can, as we said, adapt and overcome. We're controlling the controllables and working with what we've got really. So it's been all right. It's been great, like you've alluded to there with John's obviously very much a glass half full type of guy, as am I. What can we control through this period? And as much as we might not have the load that we want to be lifting in the gym, we can still control a load of other qualities. So I've personally done a lot of work on myself in terms of reading. I've been plowing through audibles, plowing through the podcasts, especially the Boxing Science podcast. Big props to them. And so no, I've had a good time through this period, but definitely chomping at the bit to get back in face to face with the athletes to really work towards our own personal targets.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. It's been good to kind of find different ways to adapt and work on different things and taking a step back from a very busy schedule. But the reason why we're going to strength and conditioning is not to be sitting on a computer or being in front of the camera. We're there to coach and make athletes fitter, faster and stronger, and definitely the social element of it as well. So today we're going to be talking to the pair of you about John's strength and conditioning. And the reason why I wanted to get John on the podcast is because I've seen quite a few different interviews on Sky Sports, on the Turtle podcast, and how you speak about strength and conditioning. It shows that you've got a real understanding of it. A lot of people just kind of give the shout out to the strength and conditioning coach, but you actually go in quite a bit of detail. And I think it'll be a good opportunity to kind of tap into what strength and conditioning from an athlete's perspective, how you've seen that improve your performance and have an impact on your boxing performance, but also let Dan kind of extend on whatever we talk about today to talk about actually some of the technical sides and what are the actual methods that you use. So first of all, John, you took on strength and conditioning with Dan. I think it were about start of 2018, late 2017. Am I right?
Yeah, I think we done the testing the end of 2017, if I'm wrong. Then start of 2018, I was out in LA training with the boys, and a few of them had already started with Dan. So I think midway through camp, Tony said to me, Tony and Ted was talking, and Ted's big on his S&C, and they had a discussion. They was just saying that's what I was really lacking. So Tony, I think he texted Dan or rang Dan from LA and said, you didn't ask him, just told him you need to start working with John. And I think it was 8 weeks before the Jamie Cox fight, we got into the gym. I think it was Monday and Thursday to start with. And I know Dan would have probably liked that to be 16, 20 weeks, but I think we see a lot of results in the 8 weeks in the lead up.
So you were kind of told by Tony to take on strength and conditioning. What was kind of stopping you from taking it on earlier? And what were your perspective of what strength and conditioning actually is before you actually got involved with Dan?
For me personally, my previous coach to Tony was a bit of a dinosaur, an old fellow who just waits for the enemy, and you don't want to do weights, they'll slow you down and things like that. You get too muscly. And I've got the frame where I've only got to look at a dumbbell and I'll put mass on. So there's a lot of cowboys in this game, and I've seen it with fighters when they have put on too much muscle and they've blown up and they're struggling to make weight. So I've seen the bad side of it as well, but I've seen Dan as a true professional. I see the work he was doing with others, and I really welcomed the change.
Fantastic. So it was 8 weeks before the Jamie Cox fight. You just alluded to there that you'd only have to look at a dumbbell and you put on some muscle mass. Dan, what would be the kind of first kind of observations of John. You know, he's a high level athlete and in a high level fight within 8 weeks' time, but you have to still kind of develop them foundations of strength and conditioning. What were your first observations and actions in that first phase?
Yeah, not to change too much, Dunny. Not to give him information overload and ask him to focus on 20 different things and then we can't apply and implement any of them. John had just come off the back of an incredible performance against, I believe it was Patrick Nielsen, like showreel knockout, which I'm sure you guys, well, I know John's seen because he did it. But, but that was such an incredible performance. So I wasn't going to go in there like a bull in a china shop and say, you've got to change this, you've got to change that with a very short time period before, you know, let's be fair, John, I hope you don't mind me saying, which was deemed a 50-50 fight against Jamie Cox at the time. Jamie Cox had come off the loss against George Groves and it was a decent performance. So, you know, that was billed as a 50-50. We had 8 weeks. And again, I use the words control the controllables. We had to identify what were our clear outcomes for that period. So we set the outcome of obviously winning the fight. And then we, you know, reverse engineered the process and put some process-led goals of how we can achieve that outcome. And some simple systems around that would have been, you know, tracking heart rate. Having a look at his heart rate, of what he's getting out of his energy system work, what he's getting out of his boxing sessions with Tony, and then how we can influence that and whether there's some areas that we need to improve on from that side of things, but assessing what he does currently at the time. We, based on the energy system side of things, we did do some physiological testing, as John mentioned there. You know, we went through a basic testing battery and, you know, John's numbers were very good, even, you know, coming in a little bit heavy at the time. And he still, you know, he hit some good numbers there from a VO2 max point of view. John won't mind me saying, I think it was like 58, 59. So, you know, the fundamentals and foundations were there from his boxing training regardless. What we did identify, though, based on our own testing, you know, force velocity profiling, we looked at SJ, CMJ, and RSI, most importantly, actually, was John was very force dominant and still is incredibly force dominant prior to me coming into the fray and us embarking on this high performance program. So he was very strong. But as we're all well aware here, you know, boxing isn't just about being strong. It's not just about upper limit of force production. It's how quickly can you produce that force, you know, accessed by rate of force development. So we then thought, okay, we probably need to get him a little bit more springy, a little bit more reactive. And then, you know, we did our testing and that actually showed us what we thought anyway. We jokingly say John's nickname's the Griller. And as soon as we had him doing some basic drills, you know, A-skip drills, yes, there was a little bit of a technical model that we had to, you know, work on over time. But it was so evident that how he put force into the ground, he was very force dominant. But there wasn't really that kind of elastic reactive component that we need for boxing. You know, if a boxer, to put this into context for the listeners, you know, if they step back out of range and then they want to transfer that energy back in, then ground contact time is actually pretty important for a boxer as well. So that was something that we did. You know, we worked on fundamental patterns there, went through some basic drills in our warm-ups, looking around A-skips, pogos, and some basic work there. And just built some fundamental qualities from a strength and conditioning program as well, made his strengths super strengths, and then looked at, as I say, making him a lot more reactive through that time. And that comes with, you know, a whole load of different things that I'm sure we'll talk about moving forwards.
Actually love it how you looked at John's physiology and linked it with his actual ring name. You know, we've got two. We've got Jordan Gill, the Thrill, which, you know, you see him in the weights room is really explosive and springy. Then we've got the Vanilla Gorilla in Callum Beardo, and he's just like John, very force dominant, very working on his max strength, and maybe needs that little bit more kind of reactive strength as well. So, John, we'll go back to John. You start with Dan, and the perspective of strength and conditioning massively changes. You're not just lifting heavy weights, you're doing you know, you're doing pogo taps, you're doing high jumps. What are the exercises that you recognise as being probably ones that have made the biggest changes, or the ones that have the biggest transfer towards your boxing performance?
I mean, we're fond of a trap bar, so we use that a lot. But also like the split squats, when we got the safety bar split squats, one-legged work. I just feel get a lot of good work with that, and it's more relative to a boxing stance as such, where it's not just feet side by side, shoulder width apart. You've got the left leg forward, right foot back, and more replica of throwing a punch, to speak.
Yeah. So you more associate with the lower body work rather than like some of the upper body, because a lot of like kind of boxers in the past with strength and conditioning and focus on like doing press ups and sit ups. You kind of like look at the lower body work as being the most impactful.
Yeah, I feel for me. I mean, I do enjoy the upper body work. More the explosive stuff, like that throwing up the dumbbells and then maybe followed by like an explosive press up. But no, I do feel that, especially for me being so force dominant, that them kind of lower body workouts do benefit me a lot more.
Wicked. So you worked with Dan for that first 8 weeks, but you've been together for about 2.5 years now. When was the point where you thought, right, strength and conditioning is having a massive impact on my boxing performance?
I think it's not so much in camp; it's what you do in the period of like between fights, and just keeping up to date and just keeping yourself working, just ticking over with it. I mean, it's important to be in the gym, punching and keeping fit on the road, but I also think it's important to keep the muscles going with the strength work. And we're not putting out big numbers and doing big long sessions, but we're getting good quality work in. We're checking in twice a week, even more on the phone during the week, but we're getting good work in. And then when you do hit the camp, it's not such a shock to the system to get back into the heavier weights and the explosive work. There's a good base there, which is nothing lost.
Yeah, it's great like saying that, because it's like there's no such thing as a training camp. It's more like a progressive kind of training process, and that's what I say to a lot of our athletes. I'm sure that Dan will say the same. No kind of camp looks the same. We're always looking to keep progressing our athletes, so it's great that you're saying that. In terms of kind of having an impact on your boxing performance, what kind of physical changes have we seen, Dan, with John? You alluded to the testing, what he came at like in late 2017, 2018. What are the key improvements that you've actually seen from a strength and conditioning perspective?
Yeah, I think we'll touch on there. Like, firstly, really great to hear John talking about, the hand supported split squats and some of the movements there in terms of joint angle specificity. That's why we've done that. John is incredibly strong through the lower body, which is probably why he enjoys it so much, because he throws up some crazy numbers. We train in a gym in town, and there's definitely an audience at times when he's lifting those weights. He really gets involved in it. So John, with our initial testing, I do have some numbers here, and John, as I've asked him prior to this, he says he's an open book. So I'm happy to share a couple. I don't want to delve too deep into the actual, specifics to it, to be brutally honest. But look, John was very strong anyway. 2 years ago, when we did our initial testing, his trap bar deadlift was 180 kilos. He's now up at 230 kilos on that specific lift. Some of the other movements, force velocity profiling, he threw up 150 kilos on the 31st of May 18, and he moved that at 0.55 meters per second. He then added, basically within a 4-week period, on the 30th of June, he then increased load by 20 kilos and moved it at the same given velocity. So we do track all of that. It's not just about up, down, forwards and back, put more weight on the bar in the sagittal plane. If it was easy as us making our athletes stronger in the sagittal plane, then, we'd probably be acting like we'd cracked this a long time ago, or be out of a job. So yes, we've increased strength in the sagittal plane. We've raised upper limit of force production. We've, as mentioned, made John's strengths prior to embarking on a strength and conditioning program super strengths. But we've looked at a lot more than that. We're working in a rotational sport, so we need to get them transferring energy from foot to fist in the most optimal way. And there's so many different sequences, as we're well aware, from ankle all the way up through the chain to the fist, that play a huge role in that. So a big one for us, Danny, was, looking at CMJ and SJ, they were, and again, John won't mind me saying this, they were low. They were very low for an elite level athlete. And again, what we have to talk about here is these are elite level boxers, but they're not necessarily elite level athletes at the time. Okay. Yeah. So again, if we look at sprinting, John does a lot of the great work with Tony Sims, on the track or on the steps, etc. So something we looked at was the biomechanics and the technical model of sprinting. How can I improve and influence positions to make sure John adheres to a proper technical model so he can put force into the ground in the most advantageous and optimal way with proper mechanics. But then also, so I look at this as a three-pronged approach. Sorry, slightly going off piece, but I'll bring it back around in a second.
Go for it.
Does he have the range and the adequate mobility to access specific positions first and foremost? As we know, a lot of boxers don't. Then can he get into, so once he has the range, can he get into and own these positions from a technical model point of view? So can they get into the desired degrees of, hip flexion? Can they get adequate dorsiflexion through the ankle and hold and own that position if we're looking at a technical model of sprinting? And then finally, can they own and replicate that movement over time? So do they have, yes, if they're strong enough to put force into the ground and adhere to the technical model, but can they do that repeatedly over the course of, the desired duration that we're looking to achieve? So it's kind of a three-pronged approach. Can they get there? Can they get into the position and own the position? And then can they execute that repeatedly over time? So we looked at a lot of that. We threw a lot of that into the warm-ups from basic kind of technical model of sprinting. But then we also looked at, does he have the physical attributes to be able to own these positions and optimize performance from that way? So yeah, some of our reactive, like CMJ and SJ, just weren't good enough. We saw incredible improvements there. I won't say the numbers, but I will say that we saw a 2.4-inch improvement on CMJ over the course of a 3-month period. We saw a 1.8-inch increase in SJ, so squat jump. For the listeners, CMJ, counter movement jump, utilization of elastic energy, eccentric loading, and then exploding. SJ is cutting out the use of that kind of eccentric loading. So we pause for 3 seconds in the bottom position, and it's a little bit more kind of force dominant as opposed to being reactive and utilization of the stretch shortening cycle. And that improved by 1.8 inches. But the big one for us, Danny, was RSI, flight time over ground contact time. We knew, and, I said it to John, I said it to the athletes, is we want to be a kangaroo. We want to be as reactive and springy as possible. So again, to give the listeners some context, if we've got the gorilla on one end of the continuum, or the vanilla gorilla, I actually thought of Callum Beardo as well in terms of actual characteristics with John. Very, very similar makeup. So it's interesting you said that. And sometimes as practitioners, we can see that prior to doing our physiological testing and profiling anyway. But yeah, so if you've got a gorilla on one end of the continuum and a kangaroo on the other end of the continuum, great if you want to be super strong. But unfortunately, we're not powerlifters here. Then can we get him more reactive? So then can we bring them to the other end of the continuum without affecting, upper limit of force production and strength? So the big win for us was once we improved RSI, which we did considerably, then I knew that I'd improve the athlete over that 8-week period to give him the best chance of performing his sport at a better, and winning the fight in essence. That's what we do. We're not doing this for our egos just to improve numbers in the gym. We're doing this to make them better athletes and make them better fighters and ultimately win on fight night,
Yeah, I like how, you've given the information there, but give the wisdom of that it takes more than just improving your numbers on testing and some things that aren't measurable. I like how you said about the running mechanics, massive factor for boxing because they do a load of running. So if they're ineffective with their running technique, then it's going to limit their performance during running, but also increasing that likelihood of injury. And then the gorilla to the kangaroo, that sounds like a documentary of your life story, John. Is that going to be a new ring name, the kangaroo?
Yeah, we'll stick with the gorilla, but I have become a lot more springy. And I mean, after this period of time, I don't know, I might have to go back to work on it. But no, I could see the improvements, and especially going back to the running mechanics, my time's improved on the track, on the stairs, on the triangle, and even generally just on my runs, on my longer distance stuff. I feel like I've brought my minutes per mile down quite considerably, and just feel running a lot better, less backaches, less aches in the knee, and just I think it is all down to the mechanics of running properly.
So you're saying about like the numbers getting like increases in physical performance. Does that give you increased confidence on fight night?
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, it's one of the things now with the strength conditioning. If you're not doing it, then you're getting left behind, and I feel like that's where a lot of fighters need to catch up and get with the time. So this sport's moving forward all the time now, and strength conditioning is a big part of it. You can deal with the running and the boxing you want, but you need to be with the times in the weight room and keeping up with it. Otherwise, you're really missing out big time.
Absolutely. Most of the stuff that we've talked about in this podcast already has been predominantly strength. We've talked a little bit about running, but like strength and conditioning sports science is much more than what we do in the weight room. It's something that we do away from the weight room. You know, we talk about nutrition and recovery. How much did you focus on your recovery before Dan got involved, and kind of what changes were made your time away from the gym?
Well, listen, I probably still go up a bit more than I should do in between fights, and I fight possibly twice a year at the moment. So
yeah,
I go up way higher than I should, but I'm trying to be the ultimate pro, but I'm still working on myself a bit. But I think during camp, I mean, no stone is left unturned, and I mean, it's been said that me and Dan moved into a flat in London for, I think it was 3 weeks out from the Conor Smith fight, and I mean, we was in LA for 2 weeks beforehand for the fight in Vegas, so it showed that it worked well, be it being locked away and just fully focused on. And Dan was arranging the food, cooking the food, and I was cooking a bit as well, and just getting the right stuff in at the right times. And yeah, a big focus on recovery with food, with whether it be protein shakes, with the Normatex, with the cryo chambers, but just making sure that we was all on the recovery as well.
Adding up every single percentage.
Yeah, so even making sure that I was in bed early, getting me 8 hours, and just that I'm not sitting up on the phone or watching TV too late.
Telling you off. And all I want to know is, living with Dan, how long does he spend on his hair in the morning? Because I need some tips, especially after lockdown.
Well, to be fair, I don't actually think he took that long. I think a lot of the times I was out before him, and then other times he was out before me, so I couldn't really say how much he spends on it.
I was going to get on phone to ask for tips when my hair got too long. I was thinking, right, how do I get that slick back style like Dan Lawrence?
I want to know he's still got it so slick back. He must have a barber somewhere.
yeah, secret barber. So I was saying about recovery, Dan. What are the kind of key fundamentals in terms of like recovery and nutrition for you? What did you kind of employ with John when you was kind of living with him?
Yeah, John mentioned about the big rocks earlier, and obviously there's two you've mentioned there, Danny, that feed into each other. You know, the sleep, nutrition, and as we've mentioned, training are definitely three of them. We can then throw kind of hydration into the mix, as well as, for me, which is all encompassing and oversees everything, is the mindset and mentality of a fighter, which is something, you know, we'll talk about in a minute as well. But in regards to sleep, as John alluded to, you know, sleep duration, sleep quality are obviously the very big wins that don't cost anything. You know, get yourself right, create that sleep environment. Again, as John mentioned, no blue light exposure, which is easier said than done. And, you know, John was very honest there with his own assessment of himself and how he can improve. And we haven't cracked it. None of us have cracked it. We're all working to get better each and every day, you know, whether it be 1% better or what. But all of the other stuff, the Normatec, the Theragun, and all of this stuff that we've gone out and outsourced and the cryotherapy is great. But it's only great once you have your house in order. And I'm not saying we don't have our house in order. We do now have our house in order, John. But just for anyone listening, is build the fundamentals and big rocks first. You can get a very quick win with increasing sleep duration and quality to then optimize recovery, to then feed into greater outputs and greater performance improvements in your sessions. You don't need to be chasing the quick limitless pill or, you know, the Normatec or the cryo or whatever, which are great. And, you know, we've added them on, but they are very much the cherry on top of the cake. You've got to have a cake first. So the sleep's obviously been a big one, as mentioned, and the nutrition has been huge for us. Like John, you know, his performances have shown that. His weight making strategy has shown that. We don't just, you know, crash the weight. We start our weight making strategy on the first day of camp. We identify the date of fight night. We work, you know, where we should be at. We have a strategy of each and every week. This is where we should be at, just to make sure we're not deviating too far away from that and giving us too much work to do later in the camp. And that comes with not just it being a dictatorship from me. You know, that I listen to John of how he feels, his experience over the years, also, you know, Tony as well. And together collectively as a team, we put that strategy in place and then we have to execute. So it was a blessing, you know, working in with John in LA and then obviously in London as well, pre-Smith fight, because we could just go all in on it. You know, I'm all in. John knows I'm all in anyway, but it was great to just take care of everything. And John made a huge sacrifice there himself. He just had, you know, the birth of his second child, and we all made commitments there. And I think, you know, being at home and not having great sleep, not having great nutrition, we just know that that's not going to feed into the optimal outcome in terms of performance. So John took himself away from that, was very self-aware, and then we could just put the blinkers on, dial in on that end outcome of November the 23rd, you know, at the time.
Absolutely. A good quote that Dom always says is that you can't out-train a bad diet. And I think about that not only from diet side, but recovery side as well. If you haven't got everything in place, then you're taking X amount of percentages off the actual training effects. You know, all the hard work in the gym is almost going to waste if you haven't got these kind of big rocks in place. You've used that term quite a lot. I've heard John say it as well. You know, the use of these analogies, John, does that help you kind of understand where Dan's coming from with some of these?
It does, yeah. I mean, I was a bit taken back when he gave me the kiss analogy, and I wonder what he was getting at. Then he explained it, and it was keep it simple, stupid. So I thought, all right, well, I'm with you on that one. But he's you just got to bear. Just listen, it's a laugh. This is a hard game we're involved in. So these little analogies we can have a laugh at and have a crack for a couple of minutes, and in between the session, it's just it's nice. It's welcomed. It eases the pressure sometimes and makes it a bit more enjoyable.
I think it's good. I think it's quality coaching as well, because it's like it's ingraining what we're actually saying. You know, Dan could come from a very technical perspective, explaining all the science to you, and then he'd go in one ear out of the other. But if you have something that you can kind of relate with as well, and then that's ingrained with you, and you see it like with like a lot of top quality boxers have them positive affirmations where they say things over and over again. So when you like something like Floyd Mayweather saying hard work, dedication, and I've got like a video where he's doing all that stuff. You know, as a strength and conditioning coach, I think it's really good of you, Dan, building them analogies and ingraining it into your athlete as well. Because, you know, what are the big rocks? You know, nutrition, recovery, strength training, stuff like that. And that kind of builds up the full kind of process without making it too complicated.
Just on that, Danny, sorry, thanks for that as well. And it's also like, we're not just saying this to, again, feed our own ego, talking force velocity curve and talking all of this scientific terminology. The end goal is to improve the athlete, to improve performance. So if they don't understand and buy into the methods and understand the why behind these methods, what is the point? And that's why, and we have a joke about it, but I do that for a reason, because they get it. They understand the why. You know, it comes with a cue and it comes with knowing the why, and I don't just do it just to, you know, for it to be a joke or for it to be a laugh. I do it for a reason, to actually reach a performance outcome. So it's the art of communication, I suppose, you know. So I appreciate that, you know, John's taken that on board. So. Yeah.
Brilliant. Good stuff. So we're going to go a little bit away from strength and conditioning now, John. I want to talk to you about, obviously, your recent form, you know, from that Patrick Nielsen fight. You went on a 4-5 KO run, Jamie Cox and the guy in Las Vegas included as well. And, you know, that took a lot of kind of boxing pundits by surprise, this run. And obviously it took a lot of people by surprise when how well you performed against Callum Smith. A lot of people thought you won it, including myself. What, you know, coming back from like kind of like a series of losses in your career, what things kind of change in your, not only your training, but your mindset going into these fights?
I think just the extra 8 pound from moving up to super middleweight. I mean, my first fight at super middleweight was Adam Etches. Then I went in against Rocky Fielding, got beat on another close decision that I thought I won for the British title. Then I was at a bit of a crossroads again where I didn't know what was coming. Patrick Nielsen come back. Good fight, very highly ranked, and a well worth risky fight taking. If beat him, and I'd be highly ranked in all the governing bodies. So, yeah, I mean, it was I wouldn't say it was calculated because I had no really, so took that risk, and I mean, not looking back at all, went on to fight Jamie Cox, a fight that I thought would be a very tough fight. I didn't see it going 3 rounds. I thought it'd be probably a real hard fight, maybe a late stoppage. Maybe I'd outwork him, outlast him, and stop him late on. Going into the Sorokin fight again, I thought the same, a tough, hard fight. Didn't realise I'd get cut early on and have difficulty handling him. Again, got him out of there with a body shot. Then we're on to the Vegas fight, and like that. I mean, just my self-belief in that run of fights, and just I think through listening to the podcast and the audio books and the bit of motivational videos on YouTube and stuff, I think it's just really helped. And not having to kill myself that last week and not eating and barely drinking to make the weight at what I was doing at 160 it's dangerous. And I mean, you know the science behind it. I mean, I've been in camp a lot with a lot of the Ingle fighters, sparring with Kel and Billy Joe, so I've seen a lot of the work they do that they've got of you, and I just believe that these extra 8 pounds for me have been invaluable. And if I'd done it 2 years before, then who knows where I'd be at. But I've been on a great run of form, and I believe that I can only keep going so long without the S&C. So I think the S&C coming at the right time, and I've not looked back. I mean, I got to fight in Vegas on one of the biggest cards, or the biggest card of the year, bar the AJ card that year. And then, I mean, yeah, it's a box ticked off, a dream come true to box out there. And then to fight Callum Smith for a world title in Liverpool, which I feel I won, is just a great feat, I suppose, especially to go to a champion's backyard. But didn't get the decision, didn't get the nod, but it's not deterred me, and I'm more determined now to come back and prove that was wrong.
I think you gained a lot of supporters that night in Liverpool, because obviously you shocked quite a lot of people, and you know, it were a fantastic performance and showing that you are truly a world level fighter. So hats off to you. Let's talk about that Las Vegas fight, because he was supposed to fight. Was it David Lemieux? And then it got changed like 1 or 2 weeks before that.
Yeah, I mean, I was flying out to LA on the Friday, and I think Thursday night I got a call saying Lemieux's injured, hurt his hand. They're going to work on a replacement for him. I just thought I just need to get on that plane tomorrow and get to LA, and otherwise, if I don't, they're just going to pull me off the show. And I thought I've got too many people booked tickets to get out there and flights, so just needed to make it happen. Got out there. I think I got an opponent pretty quick in Akaway. There was talks of another fella, I think Stephen Butler. He ended up fighting last year for the middleweight world title and got beat by Murata. But now just chuffed. We had a great week in Garcia's sparring, and then a good week in Vegas, getting the final bits in place, the final short, sharp sessions, and just a great experience.
How did you kind of readjust your mindset? Obviously, we saw that year, he's talked about Anthony Joshua, have a change of opponent with Miller and Ruiz, and that kind of changing his kind of mindset is obviously is prepared for Miller, and then getting Andy Ruiz, totally different fighters. What were your kind of things that you had to change in your mindset going into a fight with a totally different opponent on like a 1 or 2 weeks notice?
To be honest, nothing really. I mean, we got the list of opponents sent through, and me, Dan and Tony sat down in the house we was in and got YouTube up, and had a look at the list, and we saw Carway, and we just thought he's exactly like Lemieux, come forward, big shots, and just it was a no-brainer. Stephen Butler was 6 foot odd, back foot boxer. You would really have to go looking for him. So for what we've been training over the 10, 12 weeks, it just made sense to stick to the Akawe. Very similar style to Lemieux, and just what we've been working on.
Fantastic. And then you discuss about the Rocky Fielding defeat, and obviously you've had a couple other defeats in your career early on, but then you've kind of elevated yourself to world level now. what kind of things did you go through to deal with those setbacks to keep moving forward? And what would your advice be to maybe younger fighters that have a loss, or how would they kind of guide their career following a loss?
I think, to be honest, the Billy Joe Saunders defeat, it was close, could have gone either way. I just put it down to experience. He had a lot of 12 rounders. That was my first. The Blackwell fight was the start of my real struggle with making 160. Again, in the Arnfield fight, didn't have much and just in survival mode. But up at 168 against Fielding, I felt like I did win and I'd done enough, but just went against me. But who knows? I mean, not looking to the future, but if I'd have been on the S&C work from then, would it have been a different story? I mean, I had been badly hurt in the 10th. Would I have had it in me to finish him off and maybe bully him a bit more through the fight?
Good stuff. What advice would you give to a pro boxer just starting out on their career? Obviously, you've been a pro for, is it about 10 years now?
Yeah, come up 10 years now, yeah.
Yeah, so so what advice would you be giving a professional boxer just starting his way onto the pro ranks?
Just don't take it to heart. I mean, it's an experience, and like I was listening to 50 Cent, his audio book, and it's like, you're going to take way more losses than you are wins. So it's just how you come back from them. So just keep plugging away, self-evaluate, reassess, watch your mistakes, watch other people's mistakes, watch what they do good, watch what they do bad. Just be an open book with it. Just be willing to learn, be willing to listen, and just be willing to develop all the time.
Fantastic. Great words of advice. I thought you were actually going to quote some lyrics there when you said that you've been listening to 50 Cent.
No, the beat weren't coming, so I just thought I'd stick to the words.
So what's coming up for you? Obviously, like with this pandemic, everything's been kind of tossed up in the air. Have you got any kind of wind of a fight that you're going to be preparing for?
Nothing as of yet. I mean, I'm still hopeful for a Smith rematch.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's an arena fight, so I can't really see that getting put on in the back garden.
No.
I'm open. I'll need a good camp to get back in after this extended period off, but I'm looking forward to getting back in the gym, doing some trap bar deadlifts, some split squats, and just getting back to it. And I don't need to rush back in for a fight. I just want to do things properly, but hopefully we'll get some news soon.
Fantastic. So just to finish off, Dan is saying about John getting back into the gym, doing some trap bar deadlifts. What are the kind of go-to kind of methods for boxers just in general, returning to the gym? Obviously, we don't want to be doing too much too soon.
I think exactly that. Yeah, don't. And I've had this chat with a few of the lads and general population clients across the board, is that don't just because the gyms are open thinking, oh, I'm chomping at the bit to do a 230 kilo trap bar deadlift or whatever it may be specific to that individual. Is we've used this period to work on a number of different qualities. Obviously, max strength hasn't been one of those because we haven't had the means to reach that outcome, though we have worked on a load of other things that we've mentioned previously. So I think you should be, if you've continued training, have had a proper kind of preparation and preparatory period before getting back to the gym. But I'd build yourself back up gradually. Maybe, if you're training for body composition reasons, maybe don't go down the route of, training a specific muscle group on one given session. Maybe do some form of total body workouts at sub-maximal loading, and then build yourself back up with kind of an extended second preparatory phase of training before you then ramp things up. So just don't go crazy with it. You don't want to induce yourself upon too much stress too early. I think, John mentioned about kind of mechanical stress and, making sure your muscles keep ticking over, and, same thing. So making sure, your muscles keep ticking over, making sure you don't dump a load of stress on the central nervous system as well by exposing yourself to heavy loads. And something we've done really well through this period is build robustness, build, tissue quality, tendon health. There's loads of stuff that we've been able to do around that. But that said, that's very different to going from being able to, I don't know what John, and John, you beat me to the punch giving John at Perry and Fitness a shout out, by the way. That was on my to-do list, so thanks for that. But John at Perham's been absolutely brilliant. We were struggling to get some weights for John Ryder, and he went above and beyond. You know, he went and dropped you a couple of dumbbells, a kettlebell, and a plyometric box, I think it was.
Yeah, it took me right out.
Yeah. So to put that into context, you know, John's got 225 kilo dumbbells there, and again, we've mentioned he's doing 230 kilo trap bar deadlifts and a 200 kilo hand supported split squat. So there's huge, you know, difference between the upper and lower numbers there. So just doing 225, yes, we've given him a bit of a stimulus. We've manipulated tempo movement. We've played around with, you know, isometric pauses. We've chosen our pairing of exercises quite cutely as well to reach an outcome. But we need to gradually build yourself back up through the loading strategies to get you to that end goal again, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm having like kind of flashbacks to like kind of first sessions back for a lot of athletes, and I'll just do like mobility work. And like I did one with Jamie McDonnell. He hadn't been doing strength and conditioning for quite a while, and this was last year. And I just basically did mobility. I just went, you will be sore from this. So there's no point in doing like a really hard session. You'll be sore just from doing like a plate squat to press with 5 kilos. Next day, he couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So imagine if I actually pushed him to do some like kind of heavy goblet squats or something like that.
Again, it's knowing your athlete, isn't it? And minimal effective dose. John will like this one: stimulate, not annihilate. So
Yes.
and that's another one we use quite frequently. And I think that's the goal. Is look, do you know what? Let me end with another analogy. Let's go with the mountain analogy. You don't reach the summit without climbing the mountain. Earn the right to progress. So whereas you might have been at the summit previously with a 230 kilo trap bar deadlift, and so high load and probably high amounts of volume because you're able to tolerate that to allow for positive adaptations to occur, you had to continue in that vein of working. But now you're probably back down here. You need to climb that mountain again gradually. So build yourself back up accordingly. Don't just leave the ego at home as well for the guys and girls out there.
And then in 10 weeks' time, John will be back from a gorilla into kangaroo, yeah? Good stuff. Okay, guys.
I'll be a kangaroo deadlifting 250 this time.
There we go.
So that's an impressive deadlift, by the way. I think that's probably the strongest boxer out there, surely. 250 kilo deadlift.
Oh no, we got to build up to 250. We're at 230 at the moment. So
230.
Let me get this next camp out of the way, and I'll be up there.
Yeah, I think
challenge has been set.
Yeah,
I think we need to put it out there who has got the strongest deadlift. Well, we're Eddie Hall and Thor becoming boxers. 500 kilos. I think that competition has just birthed and died within like 5 seconds. Okay, guys. Thanks very much for joining the podcast. Thanks for your insights. It's been fantastic. I'm sure a lot of boxers, athletes, coaches will take a lot from it. So thanks a lot for your time, Dan and John. I wish you well returning to the gym.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
That brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you have any questions about the topics raised during this episode, please don't hesitate to contact us either on boxing.sci@gmail.com or on Instagram @boxingscience. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, which is Boxing Science, and our online membership, boxingscience.co.uk. We have a brand new section to our Boxing Science membership, Lockdown Workouts, where we share a range of different exercises and full workouts based on limited equipment or zero equipment. So no matter what access to facilities you have, there's a range of workouts that can help get you fitter, faster and stronger during lockdown. If you're a regular to the Boxing Science podcast and you're liking the content so far, please leave us a review. Hopefully you're going to be leaving a 5-star review because this will help us grow our podcast, which will in turn help us develop more content for you to share the Boxing Science training methods and research. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode.